Good morning, Story Trading VIPs. Day before a big meeting with Dario's Rick Anderson at tomorrow 11:30 a.m. Make sure you're in the VIP announcements room so you can find the link to that tomorrow morning, the link to that interactive Zoom interview. So we're going to start with specific stocks this time instead of the indices because there are a bunch of earnings that could be impacting what's going on with SPY, QQQ, etc. We'll get to Dario in just a second. There was some big news in Dario this morning, but first, just want to point out we had earnings from IBM, AT&T, American Airlines, and Tesla last night. They basically all beat and had really good guidance, except for Tesla. Tesla missed on revenue and also ratcheted down delivery expectations for I don't know what period going forward, if it was the remainder of this year or next year. So Tesla taking a hit. It's very close now to its 52-week low of 204. It's 208 here in pre-market. So you'd think that would have an impact on ARKK. And scrolling down here to RK, you can see it's down 1.27%, underperforming SPY and QQQ. And now SPY and QQQ, we're positive this morning, I think, on the backs of these good earnings. We've had so far nothing but good earnings in coming out of financials, now telecom, airlines. And AALL was up sharply this morning and it pulled back. So I don't know if there was a conference call comment where it pulled back, a guidance comment. I'm not sure why that pulled back. But so far, we've had generally, so far, earnings that have been really good, but sectors which are, recession resistant at this point with the financials and the telecoms, especially. AT&T, by the way, that's a big move, 3.5%. AT&T is a 7% yield, and Verizon is reporting tomorrow, and that also has a 7% yield. It's a sympathy move this morning, up 0.5%. You can see both of these have been down sharply the last 3 to 6 months, both AT&T and Verizon. So these are the types of stocks that are going to be outperforming if we go ahead and do break below that 200-week moving average. Now, this makes me feel really good, by the way, for the telecom stocks given to us by Chris Tarbert, which is Clearfield and COMM. So Clearfield, right there, you can see it's been having a great year in COMM. So these I expect, if telecom is doing well, I expect this to few good picks, possibly going into a new regime. We talked about this new regime last week. If we did, we were kind of worried. We thought we broke through the 200-week moving average. There's a false alarm. And that's when I started talking about a new regime that would be really bad for non-profitable companies, predicting that we're going to see lots of bankruptcies. Now, even though we're above and we're bouncing above the 200-week moving average and the last few days have been good, the price action was really bad in a lot of risk assets yesterday. DRIO was very bad. We dropped below key moving averages. It just fell off a cliff over there. SMSI hit a new 52-week low. We saw ARK underperforming yesterday, doing really poorly. So there's some signs here that people are not really buying that this balance of 200-week moving average is the end of the bear market. People are looking forward and thinking, hey, we're going to be in a nasty situation for a couple years, similar to what happened after the dot-com bust and the financial crisis bust. So I have an inkling that that's what's going to happen. If that's what happens, you really don't want to be in companies that need to raise money. And, some of them may go bankrupt. I mentioned Peloton before. That's an obvious one, I think, and plenty of others may possibly go bankrupt. So, a stock like Dario is getting punished yesterday because there's a 25 to 50% chance they're going to need to raise money. So that's why I think sentiment is turning against these stocks, given the recession fears coming up and a longer bear market. But we got a big catalyst in DRIO this morning. Now, if they execute, they get all these catalysts, they get these contract wins, there's a decent chance either they won't need to raise money, or if they do, that they can get it on really good terms. So not really changing my stance on Dario, but this morning they got another two employer contracts for their full suite. This is a big deal. Full suite pays them like $70 to $80 per month per engaged employee. And these are large customers. It says a jumbo employer is one of them. This is the Benzinga, but in the original one, let's see if here, new jumbo employer account represents increasing penetration and one of them was a global sports franchise, global sports organization. I don't know what that means. I'm going to ask Rick about that tomorrow. What's a global sports organization? I mean, all of them I know are regional, so I'm curious to know what they mean by global sports organization. But in any case, these employer contracts are rolling in. They've had now 5 new employer contracts since the last earnings call, but they're going to need at least a dozen more. And we're waiting for details on the national health plan. We're waiting for a regional insurer. So tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Make sure you join us for that interview, an interactive Zoom exclusive to our community tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Um, Now, IBM as well beat and raised. They had an interesting commentary that they're saying because of inflation, there's increased investment in technology. I wonder if that means I didn't look into it so carefully, but I'm wondering if that means companies are worried about higher wages, and by investing in technology, it's going to lower their costs because they can hire less people or let some people go. I wonder if that's what that means, but that's an interesting commentary from IBM that inflation expectations are helping IBM. um, all right. What else? We talked about Tesla. Now, by the way, Tesla, I put 2 articles, 2 good bear articles, I would say, on Tesla in the VIP trading room. And obviously, we're right at support here, the 52-week low. So if it breaks that, here it is. I think this is a magnet at this point, 160. By the way, there were several downgrades on price targets by analysts, averaging at least $50 a share in price target. So pressure is on Tesla right now. Look at the post-COVID move this one had from about $50 to 400, now 200. So I think this may have room to the downside. There's also worries that Elon Musk is going to have to sell shares, more shares to fund his Twitter purchase. All right, going into a couple other specific stocks. Actually, before we go to KMPH, I want to point out XXII because I have a story trade thesis I put together on this one. I really like how it's holding up against this 50 DMA. It retested it on a red tape yesterday. I didn't really need to do that, which is telling me it's itching to break above it. Now, what would cause it to break above it? Why would it go above it? It could be event anticipation. They have LD Micro next week. So remember on last week's conference, look how the stock took off from 80 cents all the way to 126. So I bet you people are thinking, okay, he's going to sell that same story now to a different audience, to a new audience, impact on the stock. So you may see an event anticipation run causing a break of the 50 DMA into the LD Micro event. And then, of course, you have all the other catalysts the CEO promised that should be coming in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm thinking that those catalysts and the anticipation of those catalysts is enough to break this definitely big resistance at 125. You can see these candles here with previous support, now resistance, and the 50 DMA. So it's definitely a key resistance level on the chart. I'm thinking these catalysts are enough. Story trading method, right? We're looking at different pillars. The catalysts are enough now to handicap whether this acts as resistance or breakout level. I think it's going to act as a breakout level and take us to the next resistance, which I would say is 150. Why 150? Well, you see here, this was a support level and turned resistance level. You can see where I'm pointing. The August 18th, 150 was support, and then August 25th and August 26th, 150 acted as resistance. And not only that, if you switch to the weekly chart, you'll see the 20-week moving average is just at about 150. It's 153 and declining. And more clearly, you can see all of the support here over here as well. 150, close to 150, these 3 weekly candles. So that's my target. This is a story trade idea at this point. Now, I've been in this since $1, and I haven't sold any yet. Probably should have sold some at 125, but as I tell people, I'm a little bit of a gambler. You shouldn't necessarily do what I do. Okay, so I'm looking for the bigger money. Could be a mistake, but 80 cents to $1, got it at $1, 125. Now I'm looking for 150, and I think if I get that move, I probably take a nice amount off the table as we approach 150. So that's your trade idea on XXII. KMPH, interesting. I've been doing more research on this because I've been seeing more and more articles about Adderall shortages, and I put those in. But yesterday in the rooms, yesterday the stock was doing a little more research on this. I noted a couple things that are interesting. Google Trends, if you search for the name of the drug, I forgot what it is, but their ADD drug, and it's hard to spell. But if you go look at that and you do a Google Trend search on it, there's actually a strong correlation between Google Trends, and there's enough data there so you can actually see the movements between Google Trends and the weekly script numbers that Chris has been offering us every Friday morning. So that's interesting. Could be a leading indicator. So take a look at that. Also, as I was researching KMPH, by the way, we're at this 200-week 200-day moving average support. As I said before, don't take it so strictly because the stock historically hasn't taken this line too strictly at the 200-day MA. It's roughly at a decent level, right? Maybe it can even go down the 530s. But in any case, while I was researching KMPH, I came across another company, ZYME, ZYME, another biotech company that yesterday had a deal for a $2 billion licensing agreement with Jazz Pharmaceuticals, up to $2 billion in royalties and milestone payments. They get $50 million up front. The next milestone, I think, is $350 million. And the market cap here is only $400 million. So I want to note this for two things, because the reason it was brought up in the KMPH room was basically someone showing this as a proof of a paradigm shift in markets where the stock was only up 15% yesterday. So, like, if this news came out, a $2 billion licensing deal and a $400 million market cap, if this came out last year, this stock would have been up like 100%, but it was only up 15%. So why do I say this? I say this, first of all, maybe it has more room to the upside. So if you want to research that, if you're into that kind of thing, it did almost pull back against that 200 DMA. But the other reason I'm saying this is we may have to, in fact, I know we have to ratchet down our expectations on what a good trade is, right? We got used to the huge gains when we had winners in the past, and maybe we should be looking more at 10, 20% gains as a great trade now instead of 50, 80, 100% gains. So that's a shift in mindset that needs to happen that I've been slow to adapt to. And I think this is a evidence piece here that maybe, we'll have to do that, and that may impact like my expectations for a stock like DRIO, right? Let's say we get great news. Where's it going to go? Right. And I failed to mention where I think it could go today. Yesterday, the bottom really fell out of DRIO. And I'm thinking with this news of two large employers, maybe we should erase what happened yesterday and be back closer to 475. I think that's possibly in the cards here at 4 by 462. So I'm definitely interested in seeing this reclaim 475 getting back in here. No guarantee that that happens because there was a big seller yesterday. You can see in the price action, walking it down, and then 50,000 sell order right there. If his not done, you never know if we can reclaim that 475. I think yesterday was because of one big seller. 75, I think, like, kind of fundamentally it makes sense that this shows DRIO still on track, and it didn't really deserve to have the bottom fall out of the stock. So 475 would be my bullish scenario for today. All right, moving on. We talked about XXII. Oh, I wanted to mention CTLP. This is a VIP pick by Mark Gomes, who presented it to us in our community. And I like how he's framing this because it's very much story trading style, where he said that, hey, this stock has been down because the 10K was late, right? That's a sentiment issue. And now the 10K is filed. So it should reverse, right? It should be a buying opportunity. And he was right on that in the morning. The 10K came out in the morning. The company didn't PR it till after the close, right? So, that was a nice gain from the bottom over here. So perhaps this is something that can continue an upward movement. You have a resistance here at 346. I personally am not in this one. I'm not so compelled by the valuation argument on CTLP. For me, the upside doesn't seem big enough. But in any case, for those of you who like that story, like the Mark Gomes pitch, CTLP, catalyst there, reversing the poor sentiment. 10K is now filed. They're caught up. All right. QUIK had some news yesterday. So this one, I'm in it still. I like it. I like that DoD deal. Now that it looks like they were involved in another related deal with the DoD. Now, it may be that this is part of that bigger contract. I'm not sure. But they're working now with another company called MRAM as part of a $2.8 million deal. So this looks like it's a combined award. So I'm not sure how much of this $2.8 million goes to QuickLogic, and then up to $8.7 million. This is also for similar thing. So this DoD, I'm not sure if this is under the $72 million. Remember, they got like $7 million out of a $72 million deal. So is this additional 8.7 million part of that, or is it additional? I'm not sure. But now they're going to see additional money from this DoD initiative. So that's QUIK. Let's look at the chart on that real quick. No pun intended. 625, that's important resistance. Let's get above and close above these two moving averages. And if we do that, if we close above 625, that'll be bullish for continuation move into the mid to high sixes. Okay, so that's to the upside there on the targets. Oh, RELL pennies away from all-time high. All-time high, I think, is $22.24, something like that. I put it in the room yesterday. Can't see it on this chart because it's like you have to go back like 25 years. So I think at this point, that's a magnet. You're going to test that all-time high, another 40 or 50 cents from here. Question is, what happens at that point? I think, this is probably where the stock belongs in the low 20s. Can it break above it? Yeah. If you talk to Rex, he loves all-time high breakouts, so I'm not sure if it does break out there or not, but I think you start getting into the more fairly valued range when you're in the low 20s. We actually called for low 20s right after that earnings report, right? It was the morning over here where was that? I think it was here. Wasn't that earnings over here? Yeah. It was over here. When we opened at 1688, I was like, this thing's got to go to the low 20s. So we called it back then, and man, that was a great call. I wish I had a bigger position in that. Any case, Air is doing great. We're continuing to watch Air. BTU had a pullback. Matt likes it here. He thinks it's a good deal. This is his stock he introduced to us to. Had a big pullback yesterday, minus 7%. Strong cash flow. So I think they have earnings next week. I don't know. Benzinga had something about earnings, but I couldn't find this anywhere else. I think this is a typo. I think their earnings are next week, BTU. But in any case, pointing that pullback possibility of a buying opportunity yesterday. Now, Rockley, yesterday we noted they had some news. Now, I went through that news, and I don't think it's too material. It's definitely very interesting. This is probably just an oversold balance, and the catalyst served as a little bit of a positive sentiment to take it to the 20 DMA. So very fascinating what this company is promising, but a lot of people at this point don't believe them. I've heard people think of it's a fraud and things like that. So I'm not in it at this point, but I continue to monitor it because I'm just fascinated by what they're trying to do. Rum is starting to get into a value range, I think, right? We talked about Chris Tuttle from SPACVest thinks it's a $5 fundamental value. I think like the lowest, if that's true, I think the lowest you get is like $7 because you're always going to have a premium on this due to sentiment. We're already down at 8. So this is getting into a range where it's interesting. You have earnings coming up in 2 weeks, and that could cause an event anticipation run. So big dives, and then you'll have to sell it on the pops. All right. This is a trading vehicle at this point between $5 and $15. All right. So that's about all I wanted to cover, except I do want to mention AREB. AREB up 50% this morning. We had this, we talked about this months ago because it was a really low floater, and it was like one of these political stocks that had high sentiment, a Trump stock, because they sell like patriotic goods, something like that. And look at this market cap, 1.4 million, 5 million shares outstanding. And this morning they're saying they're going to have 5 million in revenue in Q3. That's 20 million in revenue. That's like 15 times their market cap. So I don't know what's going on here. There must be other shares that's not accounted for in this. They must need to dilute heavily. There's a lot of warrants or something, because a valuation like that really doesn't make sense. Something probably wrong. But in the meantime, it's moving on this news up 42%. I'm not playing it, but maybe it's worth investigating. I'm going to throw this out there for someone who wants to take the reins on this. Why don't you investigate this? Check the share structure. Let's check their cash position on their runway. Maybe there's something there. Okay. So definitely something I think is worth looking into, AREB. And if you do happen to look at it, let me know what you find. Let the rest of the community know what you find. And with that, I'll just say we're at the end of our list here. But yeah, I just want to reiterate, I'm definitely concerned about any kind of stock that needs to raise money at this point. I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to stay above that 200-week moving average. And, let's hope DRIO executes and stays out of that category of stocks that people are shorting because they're going to need to raise money on bad terms. That's the whole thesis of shorting and these companies that need to raise money, growth companies, microcaps or SaaS. That's the whole thesis why they're being shorted. So let's see if we can get a pop out of DRIO today. I have some really great, tough, insightful questions for Rick Anderson tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. And let's see if we can continue finding some other top picks, right? Like a lot of people must think I'm doing great this year, right? Because we've had great picks. We have, right? And especially some of our higher confidence ones have done great, like RELL, Clearfield, Air, which I picked up again at 7. There's been a bunch of big winners. But the problem is I have like 20 stocks, right? So 3 stocks not enough, right? If I have like 3 stocks, I can't put all my money in 3 stocks. I have too much money now. A couple years ago I could have done that, but I can't do that. So I have like 17 other stocks that are going down or flat or whatever it is, right? I only have 3 or 4 stocks that are big winners. So let's just keep working together and finding other great stocks, because these days I don't put more than like 5% in one stock, except DRIO. I broke my rule for DRIO and I got like a big position in DRIO. So anyway, thanks for joining, guys. Let's continue collaborating in the rooms. We'll see you tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. for the DRIO Zoom. Look for that link in the community coming later today. Have a great day. Thanks for joining.